Hello, everybody, and thank you for signing up to receive this free video, which is going to describe and give you an introduction to Islam. I know you have a lot of questions, and I know these questions might be stemming from different events that might have happened in your life, or maybe just due to general interest. So in this presentation, we'll try to answer the basic questions about Islam, as well as have some sort of an understanding of how do you engage with Muslims and how do you perceive this faith that is on a global level. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to share my screen with you guys, and we're going to get started right here. So here it is. All right, so do you know Islam by Mustafa Abousaleh? And that is yours truly. So let's get started right here. So why are you here? You might be here because you have general interest in Islam or about Islam and Muslims. You might be here because you're working with a Muslim audience on various services. This could be medical, this could be settlement, military, police, government, refugees, any of those services that are provided to a Muslim audience. You might be also here because you had an encounter with a Muslim neighbor or a family member or a co-worker. You might also be here because you have some interest to travel to a Muslim majority country. There are many of them around the world. Or you might be here because, and we have to be honest here, because you have some fear or anger or apprehension about Islam and Muslims. And this is, in our today's world, this is something that can be common because of all the media coverage. Or you might be here because you're seeking to understand something specific about Islam and Muslims. Maybe there is some shocking fact that you heard, like Muslims don't eat pork, or why Muslims don't celebrate Christmas, or why is polygamy something that Islam deals with, or what is jihad? What's up with jihad? Or why is it not allowed to draw the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him? Or really, like, what's happening with this faith that seems to be a trend to talk about these days, but there aren't a lot of information out there about it. So then you ask the question, or we ask the question, why here though? How did you get here? And one of the reasons is that, well, it's not easy to find credible information about Islam and Muslims. Yes, there is a lot of hearsay and there's a lot of talk on various fronts, but which of this information is actually credible and makes sense? And maybe you're here because you have encountered an event, or you had some encounter with people whom, when you asked about Islam, they try to convert you, and you really don't want to convert to Islam. You just want to know more. You have something that happened in your life, or you have some interest about Islam and Muslims, and you're really not looking to change your faith or embrace another religion. You just want to learn more. Or you want somebody with a thick skin to listen to you. And I am here with a very thick skin, and I'm glad that you have found me. You can throw at me any question or any comment, and I will try to address it to the best of my ability. Obviously, try to be respectful, but I have seen a lot in my life. So don't worry about me having a thick skin. The other reason, it could be that you're really tired of those experts, the pseudo experts. Everybody out there might claim to be an expert, especially those that are experts in Islam. You find them that they get interviewed on different media channels. They publish things on websites that try to basically attack Islam and Muslims without providing real substance. And most of those pseudo experts, when you actually analyze what they say and you ask some real experts in the faith, they would say, we don't even know where they got these facts from. Or you could be here, you arrived here because really you found no one to talk to about issues pertaining to Islam and Muslims. So what is our agenda for this presentation? The first agenda is that I want to introduce myself. It's important for you to know who you're talking to. and why I'm doing this. I'll tell you my story. Also, the next topic is that we're going to talk about, there are a lot of Muslims in the world. Well, where are they hiding and what are they doing? The next topic is, where did Islam originate from? It's important to have that understanding and see where this faith has started and where it is right now in the world. Also, we will touch on what do Muslims believe in, and then what do they practice. And we're going to answer the question, is there really a spiritual component to Islam, or is it just mere set of laws and rituals? And then I will end with describing what is next for you. What's the next step that you should take if you want to learn more? And then I'll provide you with my contact information to reach out to me for any questions. All right. So who am I and what am I doing here? Well, my name is Mustafa Abousaleh. This is my lovely family. This is my wife, Lubaba or Lulu, and that's my child, Nuruddin, or you can call him Noor. He's about 2 years old at the moment. And my background is that I'm a Canadian Muslim who immigrated to Canada in 2000. I have a Bachelor of Electrical Engineering with a master's in electrical engineering and business. And also, what I have as well is a Bachelor of Islamic Studies. I have founded and managed over 10 organizations that perform various objectives, or they pursue different objectives. A lot of them, they are related to Islam and Muslims. I have been teaching Islam to Muslims and non-Muslims for about 20 years. But 2 years ago, I started in developing my own curriculum for teaching Islam. And it's important for you to understand why that is. Now, Islam and Muslims are mentioned all the time everywhere. However, there are not as much information about Islam and Muslims that can be credible. And I'll give you an example. And I'll start with this question. Can you really believe that I have sat with someone for about an hour and a half, and they have learned from me more than what they have learned over the span of 10 years of research, of intense research about Islam and Muslims? This was my story. I have met this middle-aged lady who had a friend, a close friend, who was a Muslim. And she really wanted to learn more about Islam and Muslims, just so that she has a better understanding about what her very close friend is doing and what do Muslims believe in. And this lady, who was a working professional and very academic in her approach to researching about Islam and Muslims, she spent 10 years traveling to different libraries, meeting different people, asking different questions. And then I just happened to meet her at one of the mosques that she had to travel a long distance to get to. And she opened some books, she sat down, she was trying to answer some questions about Islam and Muslims. And I noticed she was struggling quite a bit with what she was looking for. And, I just kind of said hi and we started chatting. And it really annoyed me when I came to know that she has been researching Islam and Muslims for 10 years because she had some very simple questions that she couldn't answer. And after 10 years, these questions are still not answered. And she was looking in the wrong places. She was not able to find the right resources and the right people to talk to. So I said, okay, would you allow me just to go through some basics with you? And she said, yeah, of course. So the moment I start talking, she pulls out a paper and a pen and she starts writing. And, I'm talking and talking and talking. I'm structuring things for her and explaining to her, how do you look for what type of information and where, what things really matter, what are the biases that you need to be aware of, how to find, how to dive deeper into some aspects of Islam. And I'm structuring these things for her, and she's just writing and writing and writing. And after, about an hour or an hour and a half, she looks up to me, she looks up at me and she says, Mustafa, what I have learned in this one session is more than what I have learned in the past 10 years. And this was really shocking to me because I realized and I had this epiphany that with my engineering background and being able to structure things and being able to deliver a message in a clear way, and with my background in teaching and learning about Islam, I can make a difference in the lives of many people. And this story was not unique. This story happened many, many times over with different people that have been trying to research things about Islam and Muslims for years, and they couldn't find answers. And the questions that they're asking might not be that hard, but they spend such a long time trying to find the answers, but they cannot get their hands on it. And this is where I decided that it is important for me to hone down the skill. And actually, very recently, I have developed my own curriculum in teaching Islam and teaching Islam to Muslims and non-Muslims. And I said, okay, it's time to kind of just release this out to the world. It doesn't make sense to continue to do it one-on-one, especially in the situation that we're facing currently in the world. In the pandemic, a lot of my classes, they moved online. So I said, okay, this is probably a good time to start recording these things and not just do them live. And this is where I'm at. So let's start. Where are all those Muslims? There are many Muslims in the world. This map here shows a simple breakdown of the Muslim population percentage-wise of each country. And we find that majority of the Muslims, the highest percentage per capita is actually here in the Middle East, as well as here in South Asia. And these areas have 90 to 100% of the population are Muslims. However, the Muslims are spread throughout the world. But in people's perception, most Muslims, they speak Arabic or basically, some people, they even have the understanding that Islam is only a religion for Arabs, and it is only in the Middle East. And it is important for us to understand otherwise. And here is some information, some basic information to kind of break down this misunderstanding. So the world has about 2 billion people that live on this planet Earth. 2 billion of them are Muslims. So that's about a quarter of the world. 25% of the world are Muslims. In the Middle East and North Africa, the MENA area, there are about 400 million people, and almost all of them are Muslims. So just for the sake of this presentation, we can say about 100% of people there are Muslims. Now, there are definitely other faith groups there, and there are other religions there, but just for rounding the numbers up, these are the numbers. But 400 million in comparison to 2 billion, that's pretty small. That's not even 25%. In Indonesia, which is the largest Muslim population per capita outside of the Middle East, outside of the Arab-speaking countries, it has a population of 265 million people. 230 million of those are Muslims, and it's about 87% of that population are Muslims. In India, India has about 1.4 billion people. 200 million of those are Muslims, so that's about 15% of the population of India. But you find that in India, only in India, the number of Muslims are half the number of Muslims in the Middle East. All right, so this is good. How about some of the Western countries? Let's take a look. So in the US has 320 million people. About 3.5 million of those are Muslims, and that totals up to about 1.1% of the population. It's not small, but also it's not that major. In Canada, it's a bit different. Canada has 35 million people. 2.4 million of those are Muslims. So that's about 7% of the population. That's a pretty large percentage for a Western country, a country that has Muslims as a minority. France And I'm sure you guys are hearing about what's happening in France, all the issues and the struggles that are happening, and the collision between the state and the Muslims in that country. France has 65 million people as a population. 9% of that, so that's about 10% of the country, are Muslims. That's a pretty large population. So in the news, when we hear this marginalization of Muslims and this constant, attack, you're not talking about a small population. You're talking about 1/10 of the country, and that's very interesting to comprehend. I myself, I find it very difficult to see people like the leaders of the country taking it upon themselves to not be a uniting front, but a divisive front, especially against a population that's this large in the country. Germany. Germany has 82 million people. About 5 million of those are Muslims. So that's about 6% of the country's population. And Germany has acceptable policies, at least things that are not very extreme against Muslims. The UK has 65 million people. 4 million of those are Muslims. So that's about 6.5% of the populations are, or of the population are Muslims. Australia. Australia is a very interesting country as well when it comes to dealing with diversity. So they have 23 million people in total, and about 600,000 are Muslims, and that's about 2.6% of the population. Now, there's a lot of talk about the amount of people that are converting to Islam. Islam is the largest or the fastest growing religion in the world. It's actually the second largest faith in the world as well after Christianity. And a lot of people are embracing the faith of Islam. However, those numbers are not are very hard to detect. They're very hard to find. I know for sure that there are a lot of people that are converting to Islam, but I couldn't find exact statistics. And there could be many reasons for that. Maybe people are afraid to come out and say, okay, we're Muslims right now, or that such numbers are very difficult to aggregate because they might be not collected in the census of each country. Regardless, some anecdotal stories. I myself have seen many people that are converting. I haven't counted those myself. In my own city, a period of time has come on my city, and almost every week there is at least one person or one family converting to Islam at my local mosque. And although this might seem like a large number, those numbers are not really tracked. And most of the mosques don't keep track of these numbers, although they should, because as we will see later, many of those people that end up converting to Islam, they need a lot of support. But these numbers are not being tracked. So, for those people who convert, it's usually not easy for them nor for their families due to that misunderstanding between Muslims and non-Muslims. And there are many stories out there about that. All right, so what are Muslims doing in the world? Well, some of them are studying at universities around the world, not just in the Muslim majority countries. Many of them are working at international companies, very well-known companies, and they have leadership positions at these companies. Just like everybody else, they're taking care of their families. Many of them are traveling and exploring the world. A lot of them are praying a lot. Muslims pray about, they pray 5 times a day. These are the obligatory prayers. Some people, they add more voluntary prayers. And they're dealing with general life challenges. Basically, they're living life. And this might be surprising to people who know nothing about Islam and Muslims, because all what they might be hearing about are how Muslims are plotting to take over the world, are plotting to establish the caliphate, The reality is that the majority of the Muslims out there, they're just living their life, they are raising their family, they're just regular people. Some, however, have done very well for themselves and have achieved a lot more. These are, for example, some of the personalities that have become very popular, either in the politics arena, or the political arena, or the economics arena, or even the academic arena, or even in the comedy arena, in the sports arena as well, like Muhammad Ali. He passed on right now. Mike Tyson, um, Ibtihaj, she's an Olympian. So yeah, many of them as well have become more than just regular people. They have become very influential people. This guy here has studied the kind of first Islamic or Muslim university in the United States. He himself is a convert, and his name is Hamza Yusuf. He's a professor, and he has done very well in establishing an accredited university to teach Islam and teach about Muslims, to Muslims and non-Muslims. A very interesting university. You can take a look at it. It's called Zaytuna University. But yeah, it's important to know that Muslims are becoming more and more visible on the public arena and on the global level. So Muslims are not something that you can ignore anymore. At some point in your life, if you haven't already, you will have an encounter with a Muslim, and you will have questions. And it is important to kind of be prepared, either mentally or academically, or socially, to know how to engage with Islam and Muslims. So where did Islam originate from? Islam started in Mecca. This is a picture from Mecca, specifically the Holy Mosque in Mecca. This black box here is called Al-Kaaba. Al-Kaaba, this black box, was built by Abraham, peace be upon him, and Ishmael, peace be upon him. So Abraham and Ishmael, they built this house right here, the house of God. And currently Muslims, they go to that mosque and they perform the pilgrimage. This picture right here is a picture of the pilgrims, where they're praying. This is one of the congregational prayers at Mecca. And you see all these are people. These are people right here. In the pilgrimage season or in Ramadan, usually the mosque is packed. During the pilgrimage season, every year, 3 to 4 to 5 million people participate in it. And that's really nothing compared to the number of Muslims that want to go and perform the pilgrimage, but basically there's just no space. Now the Saudi government, they're trying to accommodate more people, and now with the COVID-19, a lot of these events are not as big as they were. But this is basically where Islam started. Now, obviously, when it started there, it started with Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The Prophet himself, he is a Meccan. He grew up in Mecca. He was born and he grew up in Mecca, and that's where the message started. Now, where is Mecca? Mecca is just this little city right here. It's not that small, but it's right here in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia, right here in the Arabian Peninsula, in the Middle East, in the Old World. This is basically Canada. This is the United States. This is Europe right here. This is Southeast Asia. So yeah, this is where Islam started. And then it started expanding. And it expanded very quickly for a new faith. Currently in the Old World, this is the how Muslims are distributed. So basically all these countries are Muslim majority countries, the green ones. The light green one are the Sunni branch of Islam. The dark green one are the Shia portion of Islam. Generally, the Sunnis are about 85 to 95% of the total Muslim population, and the Shia are 5 to 10, maybe 15% of the Muslim population. And you see how it expanded, to all over the old world, as well as the new world. So here, for example, we'll see, the how the percentage of the Muslim population in every country, sorry, this is not the percentage. This is the number of how many millions of people are in that country. And then we see here, for example, you see those countries here. They're not even Arab speaking, and they have a pretty large percentage of, or pretty large number of Muslims in them. Right here, Southeast Asia, like for example, Malaysia and Indonesia, and those countries, they have a pretty large Muslim population. So what do Muslims believe in? And this is very important to try to at least familiarize yourself with. Muslims have 6 articles of faith. These are the elements of faith that every Muslim has to believe in. So the first one is believing in God. Muslims believe in a single God, hence why Islam is a monotheistic religion. God is not to be drawn or to be portrayed in any way, because Muslims believe that God is beyond this world. Hence, any sort of image that we can imagine or think, God has to be different from that image. And the reason for that is that this world is limited and everything in it is limited. And God, if God has created this world, which Muslims believe he did, then he has to be perfect and beyond the imperfection of this world. Hence, he has to be beyond this world. And hence, we cannot limit the limitless based on our limitations. We as human beings are limited in the way we see things, in the way we comprehend things, in the way we imagine things. And hence, if we try to limit God based on our own limitations, we are doing a disservice to this being, this divine being. The second article of faith is believing in the angels. The Muslims do believe in the angels, and the angels are genderless. A lot of people, they try to give the angels some sort of gender, either male or female, but this is again based on our own limitations. The angels themselves in Islam, they're not known to be beings that procreate like human beings, and hence it doesn't make sense to attribute a gender to the angels. The third aspect or the third article of faith is believing in the books, the revealed books. So Muslims believe that Quran, which is the holy book of Muslims, is not the only book that was revealed. The Torah is also a book from God. The Bible or the Gospels are a divine book from God, as well as some of the tablets that were given to Moses, as well as the tablets that were given to Abraham, peace be upon him. So Muslims believe that all those books are revelations from God. Those are divine revelations from God. Muslims also believe in the messengers and prophets that God had sent. As a matter of fact, they believe that in total, there are about 124,000 prophets and messengers. Now, Islam and the Quran only talks about 25 of them. But it is also important for a person to be a Muslim to believe that every nation received a warner, received a prophet or a messenger from God. Otherwise, it'll be unjust to hold them accountable. The fifth article of faith is to believe in the day of judgment. And the day of judgment is a life that is after this life, which means that this life that we're living in, whatever actions we do and whatever deeds that we do, we will harvest the results in the hereafter and will be held accountable in the day of judgment. And the last aspect of the faith is believing in predestination, or in what's called al-qadr. Basically, this is fate. And there's a lot of details when it goes to, well, what does it mean to believe in fate? Does that mean that I have no choice, or does it mean that I have a choice? And how much choice do I have? Do I have free will? What does free will mean? So all those aspects are part of believing in that predestination, which is the sixth article of faith. Now, this was the faith part. And when we talk about faith, I'll go back to the slide. We talk about the things that are intellectual. So these are the things that I cannot touch with my own hands, I cannot see, I cannot basically physically interact with. Like, for example, I cannot see an angel, I cannot touch an angel. So these aspects of the faith, they deal with the mind, with the intellect. So all these faith articles are things that try to address our thoughts that are in our minds. Now, when we talk about the practice, these are things that we can physically perform, and those are governed by the five pillars of Islam. Those are all practical things. The first one is a testimony, which is basically the key to entering Islam. Every Muslim believes in the testimony, which is that there is no God that is worthy of worship except the one true God. His name in Islam is Allah, and Allah is a name, it's not a translation, and it has no plural form, and it does not have a masculine / feminine form. It's a name, and it's a very unique name. As a matter of fact, it's not only the name that's used by, this name is not only used by Muslims, it's also used by the Christians and the Jews who are Arab speaking. So that was the first part of the testimony. The second part is that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is actually a messenger from God. With that as well, it is also believed that all the other messengers and prophets are true messengers and prophets from God. For example, Noah, John, Moses, Jesus, Abraham, Ishmael, Joseph, all those are honorable men of God, and they are honorable messengers and prophets from God. So that's the first pillar of Islam. The second pillar of the rituals of Islam is establishing the prayers. And these are 5 obligatory prayers in the day that Muslims perform. And they're spread out they're spread throughout the day. And Muslims perform these prayers whether in congregation or on their own if they couldn't attend a mosque. The prayer itself is a central element of the faith, and hence you might see Muslims praying at airports, you might find them praying at malls. Basically, if a prayer time comes, you'll find a Muslim fidgeting. They cannot sit still. They want to go and perform this prayer one way or another. And even for me personally, I had to stand in airports, even like in airports in areas where they might be not very welcoming to Muslims, but I couldn't find a place to pray. So then I had to kind of take a corner and say, okay, well, I'm performing this prayer. I calculate the direction and say, okay, this is the direction to Mecca. And I stand there and I pray, then I board the airplane. The third aspect is what's called the paying of zakah. Zakah can be translated to as purifying alms. Basically, it is a charity, an obligatory charity upon Muslims towards people that are deserving of that charity. And in a nutshell, there are a lot of details under how much do Muslims pay, but in a nutshell, and in today's world, it is about 2.5% of the person's savings. So any savings that they might have kept throughout the year, they would take 2.5% of that, and then they would pay it to the deserving channels. For example, the poor people, the people that are in debt in order to pay off their debt, people that are seeking knowledge, etc., etc. The fourth aspect of this, or the fourth pillar, is fasting Ramadan. Ramadan is a 30-day month, 29 or 30-day month, depending on the year. And Muslims fast during that month. They fast from sunrise to sunset. They hold off eating and drinking. and any sort of sexual interaction with their spouses from sunrise to sunset for 30 days. It is a very spiritual time. Muslims as well spend a lot of time praying at the mosque, reading the Quran, learning, etc. And the fifth pillar is the what's called al-Hajj, or the pilgrimage. It is performing Hajj to the house of God in Mecca at least once in the lifetime of the person, if they were able to. And there are a lot of details under what it means to be able to perform Hajj. One of they could be summarized as that you have the money and the means to get there without and even the health, without exerting excessive difficulty upon you and your family. Now, the question that comes is there any spiritual components? So the components that we talked about right now, the 5 pillars of faith, they deal with the physical body. All these things, they deal with the physical aspect. All the 6 pillars of or articles of faith, they deal with the mind. Now, Islam does have a spiritual component that deals with the heart, and Islam is very specific about how they define the spiritual component. So the concept of Ihsan is what defines spirituality in Islam, and Ihsan means excellence. That's the literal translation between Arabic and English. However, in the Islamic context, it is defined by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in one of the prophetic traditions that actually summarizes the whole faith. And he defines it as to worship the divine, to worship God as if you see God. But if you are not able to see God, if you're not seeing God, then know that God is seeing you, which means that as you're performing those rituals and those acts of kindness to the people in need or your family, or performing your civic duty and your civic work, just know that God is watching you. And if God is watching you, you know that you're going to perform at a higher level. Imagine, and this is just an analogy, imagine your boss is sitting beside you and they're watching you, then and you're able to see your boss, then you'll perform your work at a higher level. Now imagine if your boss is seeing you, but you're not able to see your boss. You will do even a better job than if you're able to see your boss. So this is the kind of ultimate spiritual station that the person can work towards. Now, a very famous scholar in the Islamic tradition, his name is Imam An-Nawawi, he categorized worship into 3 levels. The first level, he called it the worship of the fearful slave. So somebody who is a slave to the divine, they perform their duties to God and their duties to the faith out of fear, and because they're afraid of the punishment of the divine. And hence he called it the worship of the fearful slave. The second level, which is a bit higher, he called it the worship of the calculating businessman. Business people, they always look at ROI, return on investment, and hence when they are presented with multiple potential acts of good, they will choose the one that has the higher return. In Islam, there are some worships and some rituals that have higher rewardable return than others. For example, fasting can be rewarded up to 700 times the original reward. So somebody who is calculating, well, I want to collect more good deeds so that when I meet God, I can have fuller, basically, wallet of good deeds, they would look at worship that way. But then he said there is even a higher level than that. That is beyond the physical, beyond fear and beyond the physical reward. This is something that is completely metaphysical. It is something that people need to work towards. And he called it the worship of the loving free. And he called it the loving free because somebody who loves somebody, they would do anything for that loved one without calculation, without being afraid, without counting. So this is the highest level of worship according to Imam An-Nawawi. And he said that this level consists of obeying God and paying your dues to God purely based on loving the divine, not based on wanting or being afraid of hellfire or wanting paradise. It is something that is beyond that. Sometimes it's very difficult to describe it, but if you actually experience that spiritual elevation, at some points you will understand what that means. All right. This was a quick summary for what Islam is. Well, what is next for us if you want to learn more? Well, I have a masterclass that I have prepared based on many, many years of experience. This masterclass is going to go a bit into a bit more details about Islam and Muslims, and I'll introduce you to things that might take you literally decades to learn. I will summarize them up in a very concise and easily presentable ways. It is 5 units. The first unit is that we're going to talk about how do you engage with a Muslim. You will inevitably have an encounter with a Muslim, whether it is somebody in your family who converted to Islam, whether you're invited to a Muslim wedding, whether you are invited to attend a function at a mosque, whether you're invited to somebody's house, that person who invited you is a Muslim, you will have an encounter with a Muslim and you will have questions. So in this unit, I'm going to cover the basic aspects of what do Muslims do, whether culturally or religiously, in different scenarios and in different settings. The second unit, I want to cover the etiquettes in a mosque. Basically, you will at some point want to enter a mosque, and a lot of people are apprehensive about entering a mosque because it is a place that they have not been into. I've met so many non-Muslims that were so apprehensive to enter a mosque because they just didn't know the etiquettes. Like, what do I expect when I walk in? What is usually done in a mosque? Mosques usually, they're very private places, they're places of worship. They don't constantly announce to the public what they're doing. And actually, some people are very fearful of what's happening in a mosque. So in this unit, I'm going to cover what usually happens in a mosque. What are the types of mosques that are out there? There are multiple types of mosques. And how do you walk in? How do you meet people? How do you greet people? All those, they will be covered in the second unit. The third unit is I'm going to talk about something. This is going to be a hot topic. We're going to talk about contemporary Islamic movements. The media does not stop talking about the different Islamic movements. They mention Wahhabism, they mention Salafism, sometimes they mention the Muslim Brotherhood, sometimes they mention the Tablighi groups, all those movements that are part of Islam right now, especially contemporary Islam. People have no idea what they're about. They have no idea what these movements are trying to do. How powerful are they? What are their tenets? Why are they called movements to begin with? So this is going to be a very hot unit, something that will take you like years and years of research. And without the help of somebody, you will find it very difficult to get through knowing and learning about some of the most influential movements in the contemporary Islamic world. The fourth unit, we're going to get a bit more into details of some of the practicalities that are related to the 5 pillars of Islam. Now, I'm not going to cover all the 5 pillars, but I want to cover things that pertain to the purifying alms, to the fasting, and to the pilgrimage. And why I want to do that is that non-Muslims, they interact with Muslims at such events. So at events of charity during Ramadan, as well as during the pilgrimage season. And it is going to be essential for people who want to have that general comprehensive understanding of Islam to learn about those 3 rituals. And the last unit is a bit more interesting. It is talking about Islam when it comes to science and politics. Muslims have an unforgettable history in science and in politics. Muslims have contributed to basically the advancement of Europe when it came to science. Even currently in today's world, many Muslims, they are leading some uncharted territory expansion in science. And also, I want to talk about politics because it is important to understand some of the political concepts um, in Islam. You hear a lot about Muslims trying to establish the caliphate. Well, what does that mean? Why are they doing that? And what are some of the tools that they're pursuing? What happened to the caliphate anyway? How did the caliphate and the Ottoman Empire fall? And why is that something that is very dear to the Muslims' hearts? So thank you very much for coming to this presentation. This is the website that you can go to understand about Islam. And if you're really interested in the masterclass, make sure that you check the link that will be provided in the description or in the comments of this video, or it'll be in your email. And if you have any questions, make sure that you send me an email and I will try my best to respond to you. So this was something that is a very short, something that I have been trying to, or have been working on in order to basically bridge that gap of lack of knowledge between the Muslims and the non-Muslims. So I'm very happy to see you here, and I hope to see you in the course as well. We're going to be waiting for you there. Let me know if you have any questions, and thank you very much.